Hi, Moss here, and I have a Dragon with me. In this case, it's the Moon Audio Dragon Inspire IHA-1. And this amp was a collaboration between Dennis Had, who was previously of Cary Audio, and Moon Audio. And I guess they want to produce a reasonably high-end, headphone tube amp. So it's a fairly straightforward amp. It has the signal goes straight into a pair of 6 SN7s, and it has a fairly standard driver tube on there. And in this case, it has custom hand-wound transformers for the output, making it an output transformer-coupled output. And it seems to be suitable for driving pretty much everything. I mean, I drove everything from IEMs up to the good old Hi-Fi Man HE-1000 V2 with it, and it seemed to do a pretty good job. Now, feature-wise, it has, I won't show you the back on this one because this is one of the original demo models, and I guess it has a hand-cut chassis. The current ones have a laser-cut chassis and everything's even, and on the back of this it's a little bit uneven. It has two inputs which are labelled here Auxiliary 1 and Auxiliary 2 with a mute option in here. I guess the AUX1, AUX2 labelling is a throwback to two-channel audio. You'd have your two-channel amp with CD, phono and all that kind of thing, and AUX means a standard line level input. So output-wise, you can have optional preamp out, single-ended preamp outputs on the back, or in this case, it has the single-ended output uses a Nutric locking jack. I'm kind of 50-50 on those. They're a little bit irritating to use, but on the other hand, with the 6.5mm socket, it's very easy to pull it out halfway and end up shorting things. So if you do that, that could be bad for the amp. So probably having the locking jack there is a good idea. It also has a 4-pin XLR socket. It's not a balanced amp, it's only single-ended, but it has that there because a lot of headphones these days, like the HE-1000, come with a balanced cable, and so it's just convenient to plug in the XLR cable if you have it. Now, that being said, it also comes with a DAC attenuator. It's a stepped attenuator. It seemed to have enough levels to be fine adjusting the volume. Some people's criticism of stepped attenuators is you can't always get the volume just as you wanted, but I had no trouble with the levels of this. With the Yggdrasil as a source, I often had it. Now, I was listening to jazz, which is a little bit quiet. I had it up at the 3 o'clock mark. I guess more modern music, you'd have it closer to 12, which is probably ideal. As a preamp, I had it fairly down, somewhat lower, down at the 9 o'clock mark with my Adamatus 3 speakers set at their standard, flat level. So that seemed to cover things quite nicely. It also, the preamp switch is on the back. You can't see it. You just have to reach over and switch that. But otherwise, that's it. Overall design is fairly straightforward. Now, before I get into sound, I'd like to kind of talk about how sound, because when Drew and I chatted, and he asked if I could review this amp. He also passed a whole bunch of stuff to try out, which I'm going to send back after I've had a listen. A whole lot of Black Dragon and Silver Dragon cables. Now, I've originally bought a Silver Dragon cable from the Mr. Speaker's Ethers, and I noticed something particularly that didn't particularly wow me when I first used it. It was kind of actually particularly the sound when using the cable was kind of underwhelming. It was kind of smooth, and I noticed this also when visiting. I visited Moon Audio one time and went into their showroom and had a listen to their gear. It was Sennheiser H800s, it was Drew's high-end tube amp, and I noticed everything was kind of super smooth in sound, and the Black Dragon too, very smooth in sound with the Focal Utopias. And like this version of the amp, now the amp comes in 3 versions. The basic amp, custom hand-wound transformers, and a basic set of modern tubes. The non-overstock upgrade, which is what this is included, Sylvania 6SN7 chrome tops, and an RCA 5U4GB. And the high, you can level up again by getting Luntal transformers, which are a high, very well-known brand of transformers, and they make their reputation is excellent. And so you get a price ranging from about $1,600 up to about $2,150. So anyway, if I was to summarize what I feel is the Moon Audio house sound, it would be the Sylvania 6SN7 chrome top. And if you're a tube person, you're going to go, I know exactly what you mean. And that, to me, that smoothness and that evenness is very much what everything I've had from Moon Audio has been like. And it's very much the case with this amp. Now, again, it had no trouble driving anything. It drove IEMs. It did a little bit of sound with the Ultimate Ears Reference Remastered. I didn't try it with Andromedas. That was probably going to draw out too much because they're too sensitive. But even up to, it had no trouble driving HE-1000s. It was nice, open sounding. HD-800s, no trouble there. It was all very even. If you've auditioned or owned a Woo Audio amp, they can be very warm and lush. It's not that kind of sound. It's just kind of very even and smooth sound. Again, just like the Sylvania 6SM7 Chrome Top. And for me, initially, it was the cables, the amp, everything was kind of too smooth. And I've owned these tubes before, and although I've got Sylvanias in my Studio 6 now, because I was comparing with this, they were always a little bit kind of, I suppose I wanted more kind of excitement in my sound. So for example, I bought a pair of the 5962 Red Bass, the industrial version of the tube, which is a little bit more lively and a little bit more exciting sounding. And I had one of those in the Studio 6 for a while. I put the pair in here, and it livened things up a bit. So, but in a way, I kind of knew it was just a little bit more kind of maybe distortion or harshness I was really adding. What made a better difference was to leave the Sylvanias in here, and I had another of these GZ34s, which is what I have in my Studio 6, and that as a power tube, that upgraded from this RCA. That was a distinct upgrade, and it made the sound more spacious, and all the instruments more separate, and a little bit more detail came through. That was a really nice upgrade. So that to me said that the amp, you can, depending on whether you're a tube person or not a tube person, if you've got a lot of tubes, maybe you just want to buy the amp, maybe get the Lundell transformer upgrade depending on your choices, and then you can roll through some tubes you have like I did. Or someone might just want to buy the thing as stock and then and play around with tubes later. But compared to the Studio 6 is double the price or more than, depending on options. The Studio 6 was yet again more open, like it has big, very under stress transformers. It's just kind of very easy micro detail comes through. It does that very beautifully, very easily at another level to this amp. But it didn't put this amp to shame. I mean, if I didn't have the Studio 6 here and I wasn't comparing, I'd be very, very happy with this amp. It was, I didn't feel like, I was listening to the amp so much. It did seem to have a particular color. I just could really enjoy the music, especially kind of jazz, which is more what I'm into at the moment. And, just really enjoy the instruments without having to worry about, kind of any distortion, harshness, kind of component matching or whatever. And you see I have a black Dragon on the HA-1000s, and I'm coming to enjoy that smoothness, that the Moon Audio house sound more than I did before. Whereas as I said, I liked a more exciting sound before. I'm starting to come around to it, and I'm starting to enjoy it. So I guess I've been pretty impressed with this amp and considering its price. And I guess if you're looking for a tube amp but aren't looking for any particular coloration, but good linear performance, good even sound, but maybe you want some options to play around with tubes, or you already have some tubes, or you just want a really good amp. Using my shit Yggdrasil as a source, this has been a really fantastic amp, and it's definitely going to be on my recommended list of amps to buy. So yeah, I have been impressed with this, and if I didn't already have a big tube amp, I'd even consider buying one, because it's been just really nice to listen with. As a preamp too, I plugged it into the Adamatus 3 speakers, and it did an admirable job. I mean, I have the Audio GD NFB1 amp normally. It's not the best preamp. I've had better, or I could plug the Yggdrasil in directly and use the volume controls on the speakers. But still, it did a really nice job, and it's not a high-end system I have to test this with, but it did. I felt it did well. So that was the Dragon Inspire, and I'm glad I had the chance. Thank you, Drew, for letting me check out this amp. So again, if you did like my video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more, please subscribe, and I'll see you online.